Welcome. I'm Adam Miller, consultant with the Art of Applying and graduate of the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business. Today we're going to be looking at a question out of our Q&A vault, and this person has two questions about the UCLA applications. So let's jump right in.
Hey there, you're watching Ask the Art of Applying. In this series, admissions experts on our team answer real questions from our clients who are navigating the grad school application process. Watch this series to gain perspective and get real expert answers to your most pressing application questions. And if you're interested in learning more about the expert advice, editing, and guidance we provide for the grad school application process, watch the free training in the link below in the description. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more application success stories, application tips, advice, and encouragement. Enjoy the video.
The first one is that they're writing their answer to a question about their short and long-term goals for both the consortium, because they're applying through that Common App, and UCLA asked basically the exact same question. And so they're wondering, should they paraphrase or come up with new content? The second question is about whether or not we have any tips for answering why school. Why do you want to go to UCLA? Why do you want to go to Darden? And they're having a tough time about why they particularly want to go to UCLA. It sounds like they could insert the name of any school in that prompt and then just submit that across the board. So I'm going to answer these really quickly myself, and then we'll go into briefly what our consultant said back to the client. In terms of this first one here, I also applied to the consortium. So I'm also a consortium fellow. And yes, this does happen where, because the schools tend to have similar questions on their main application and they just kind of drop those into the consortium Common App, you might end up writing redundant material, but you don't want to just copy and paste that, right? One way to think about it being different is maybe the word count is different. Let's say the consortium gives you an extra couple of hundred words. That means you want to really expand on why those are your short and long-term goals, give examples of companies you could see yourself being at, people who you idolize, how you're going to get from the short term to the long term, and what kinds of other options you're considering along the way. But then maybe the school only gives you a short number of characters to fill this out. And so you just say, short term, I want to be this, and long term, I'd love to be this or this. Does that make sense? So if that's the difference between the two, is the word count, then that's how I would approach it. Even if the word counts were the exact same though, I personally would still mix up the words at least a little bit, right? The person who's printing this off and reading it, they're not the one who should have realized that this is going to be redundant. Don't bore them, don't make it so it's the exact same content for them to read over again. Don't cut and paste. Just make the wording slightly different. Even if you're going to say that my goal is still to do X and then later do Y, some of the characters that you put in there. Second question is about why school. Now, you're right that a lot of MBA programs have similar things to offer because they want to be kind of everything for everyone. They all want to give you a great social experience. They all want to help you get these great jobs. And they also all want to teach you some excellent material in the classroom. And so you're trying to figure out from the websites a lot of the time what it is that makes each of these programs different. The two things that I would focus on are particular people that you've met in terms of professors, in terms of students, in terms of alumni, in terms of admissions people, and really just how they made you feel. Not necessarily the particulars of what they said so much, although you can include that. The more important thing is why you feel like you would fit in with those kinds of people. And the second thing is the geography, right? You're looking at UCLA here. Going to school in LA is definitely going to be different than going to school in New York or Charlottesville, Virginia, or Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? These are all geography-wise gonna, on the one hand, be a path of least resistance or not to particular companies, to particular locations afterwards. Maybe you've got family in the area or friends in the area. And also, they're just gonna depend on if you're in a big city or not, what it's gonna be like for you when you're outside of the classroom or not doing recruiting related events. Are you gonna be able to go and explore other kinds of things, and what will those be? In my case, I talked to a ton of current students and alumni when it came time to answering the why school question. And that way I could say, this person's doing what I want to do. This person is taking classes I want to take. This person is, just a really kind and genuine person. And I want to be like them. I could see myself getting along with that type of person when I'm at that school. And that shows the admissions people that you're serious enough about the program to reach out and set up a call with somebody, which is kind of a good proxy for what it's like to do all these recruiting things. And it's going to show that, you actually genuinely believe that this is a place you want to be at as well. So let's go ahead and jump into if there's anything I missed in the back and forth here with our client and our consultants. So our first consultant says, hey, hope I'm not too late in answering your question. Here are my answers. Number one, you'll find as you continue working on your applications for your different schools and programs that your main points remain the same across all applications, right? Of course, you're going to say your short and long-term goals are relatively the same because hopefully you've spent a lot of time doing the introspection necessary to come up with what those are going to be. And that's not a bad thing, since your end goals are likely the same for all of these programs. Don't feel bad about it, but again, I would recommend just changing the words slightly between the consortium question and the UCLA one. Next, for why school, research is very important. The schools want to have an idea of where you'll make connections to their community. If you haven't already, I recommend taking a look at the different student groups or on-campus research groups that you see yourself being a part of and articulate why you would be a part of those groups. Exactly. Almost all schools are going to have a consulting club, a Black Business Student Association. These types of clubs are going to be at all the top programs, but those are a great way for you to find a current student to reach out to and jump on the phone if you have an affinity for one of those things. Similarly, for the campus research groups that she talks about here, what that means is they're all going to have some research centers, but the centers that are set up related to a particular focus area might include multiple professors and probably aren't going anywhere. And so even though, again, those can be similar across programs, they're different enough and show that you've done your homework enough that I might recommend mentioning those if you're serious about them. Going on here, she says, when I was applying, I tried to look for the student organizations and university groups that had a mission of supporting first-generation students because that was her background and that's where she thought she could make a difference at the time. Yeah, so you want to first think about what is that you care about and then find those people who are similar to you. They're more likely to respond and actually want to jump on the phone. And second, you'll then be able to tell for people who do have similar passions to you if you actually jive with them and you want to end up there. Some people like to highlight that they went to a certain school because of a certain professor. I'm cautious about highlighting a professor because you never know if that professor will take a sabbatical while you're a student. Oh yeah, it's a good point. And you might end up never seeing and working with that professor. Yeah, there's plenty of professors who I didn't have classes with. But the student groups and on-campus research centers, aka Institute of blah, 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 this is what I was talking about before, don't usually take sabbaticals. If the school has unique course concentrations, that could also be something you could talk about. Yeah, so MBA programs, for example, majors or concentrations are not that big of a deal. At most schools, it's really just about having those three letters, the MBA. And then if you do happen to take enough courses in a particular area, they might give you a stamp saying I concentrated in finance or marketing. In my case, corporate innovation, entrepreneurship, and business development. I had 3 concentrations because I took classes that kind of overlapped in those areas. But it doesn't matter. Like, that's not even on my resume. The important thing is the school and that I graduated and that I took classes that I found useful. So don't overly emphasize the MBA majors or concentrations too much. But note that, if there's one you're particularly excited about, you could say that it's something you would work towards. Finally, our CEO and founder, she weighs in here and says, I agree with everything said above and would add the following. 1, yes, you can repeat content. However, be aware of repeating too much and too closely, as this is how the essays are read. Second, when you get stuck on an essay topic or issue, remember to reference the weekly Q&A timestamps document to see what we've coached on before. Basically, we record all these weekly and monthly conversations that we have with groups of our clients at a time so that they can learn from one another throughout the process. And we transcribe them and give them timestamps. So you could easily do sort of a control F to find where people have talked about things before. So she goes on to say where this has actually been answered before, that she recommends listening to those recordings at that particular time. So that's it for today's video. I'm Adam Miller. And if you need any help with your applications as you're applying to graduate schools, please consider reaching out to us at theartofapplying.com.